Good morning, everybody. It is another Friday morning. It's a little after 8:15, and we're here with another episode of the Business Unscripted podcast. Today is it's episode 30, so we're 30 weeks into doing this podcast. So if you're a business owner, or you're maybe even an aspiring business owner, you are in the right spot. So in this podcast, on these episodes, we talk about lessons that we've learned as business owners, as well as lessons and things and experiences that we've gone over with our clients throughout the years. So hopefully you can get one or two pieces of information out of these episodes to help you along your journey, which is the ultimate goal. So you're in the right place. So go ahead, grab your favorite cup of Joe, and let's go ahead and jump into the show. So as you may notice, I am by myself today. Dwarren is off with the family. He had a family birthday, so hopefully they're enjoying a bunch of fun, exciting times and cake and laughter, memories, and all the good stuff that comes with getting together for a birthday party. But so when I found out that I was going to be by myself this morning, I was trying to figure out, hey, all right, what do we want to talk about? Obviously, we want to make it important and impactful, and so. One of the first things, that comes to mind, and it's crazy because, as an entrepreneur, we have so many things that we worry about, right? We have so many things that go on throughout a day. So if you're a family entrepreneur, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about your significant other. You want to make sure, that you don't let them down, that you're not a failure for them. So that's running through our minds, right? Then if you have kids, you're worrying about your kids. What are they doing? You don't want to be a failure for them. Are you setting a good example? And then you're worried about your clients, right? Especially if you're a good entrepreneur, you're worried about the success of your clients and the tasks that you need to help them with to make sure that they're successful and that they're set up for success, which is the ultimate reason why you own a business, or even your customers, depending on your type of business. So you have all these things running through your mind constantly throughout the day. And what I want you to know is that that's normal. And that if you need to talk about it, always, you can feel free to reach out to me, because I'm in that same situation with you. I know how you feel. There's so many times that I go throughout a day and just so many different thoughts, right, happen, and a lot of times nobody really understands it, especially if they're not in our shoes, especially if they're not an entrepreneur, they're not trying to build something to support. And that's the ultimate reason, a lot of people get into business is, they want to change the trajectory of their life. You probably got into business because you wanted to change the trajectory of your life. You didn't want to, just work for, the man or the woman per se, right? And what it comes down to is that in the beginning, it is a lot harder. Because you're trying to grow something from nothing, and that's what makes the outcome that much, more worth it. And here's what I can say from traveling down many entrepreneurial journeys. And so a little bit about my past, right? So you guys who are watching and learning about, so when I first graduated college, my senior year of college, I was a manager for a franchise of a tax office, and it was her first year. And I kind of managed a lot of the thick stuff for her and did a lot of the tax returns and the processing and the manager side of it. And she did wonderful. And I was like, oh wow, like this is interesting. Like it's her first year. She was very profitable. She had a lot of clients right off the bat. And so after a couple of years of working in the government in the state of Ohio, I decided that I was going to try and take my shot. Like I was like, I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm going to go and I'm going to try and do what she did, right? I'm going to open up a tax office just like she did. I saw the instant response, right? Everybody needs to do their taxes. And so I went along that route, and I did that for about 3 years. And ultimately, there's a lot of things I think that I learned from that experience. I was young, and I realized that one, franchise can overpromise and way underdeliver. I figured that out the hard way. And there's don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good franchise situations out there that you can get into that have support that, will help you kind of grow and give you the tools and things that you need. But I felt like this franchise wasn't it. They definitely overpromised. They oversold. They always put the best people in front of you, which when you're young, you're in your 20s, you kind of figure out, you think, oh, that's just going to happen to everybody, putting in the work. So I did that for about 3 years and realized that wasn't the thing for me. And so I decided to get out of that and ended up giving it back to corporate, sold it back, went back into the corporate world, worked in business. And then in tax, decided that, I want to try and go out on my own again and just do tax work, support work. Did that for, about a year and a half. And I struggled so bad at that. Because I didn't understand what I know now, right? I didn't understand the importance of networking. I didn't understand the importance of relationship building because I never had to do it up to that point. I just figured, hey, you go into business, you let people know, what you do and how you support them. And people are going to come knocking at your door, right? It's not it. Didn't understand advertising and marketing, things that we all know now, right? Because there's just so many, there's so many sources of information that you can learn from and soak it all in. And so that lasted for about a year and a half. I did get a couple clients that I still have today, which I love. And I still support them today. But then I ended up going again back into corporate world. And that's where I kind of, my experience, my knowledge, and my growth happened was going back into the corporate this past time, probably before I went and started trying business solutions, because I was able to lead bigger teams. I was able to be part of bigger budgets, bigger situations, bigger projects, and work directly with and make decisions at the executive level with these businesses that I was a part of. And so I learned a lot in corporate before I now went out and started, trying business solutions. And the beauty of that is that it's now my third time. And I feel like now, while I'm not perfect, nobody is, I definitely feel that the trajectory of trying business solutions is better. And so the theme of this message, for this first part of the conversation today, is just keep pushing. You're going to figure it out as long as you're willing to grow and you're willing to continue to expand your knowledge, expand your role. And sometimes you got to take a step back. And I had to do that twice. This is now my third essentially entrepreneurial journey, where each time I learned a little bit from the first, I then took a step back to grow. I feel like there's always going to be this part, not just in your entrepreneurial journey, but in your life journey. There's going to be moments where you are climbing, right? You're going to reach a peak, and you might have to take a step back, a slight down tick, but then you're going to bounce back up. Look at any sort of relevant chart related to the stock market or related to any sort of business growth. There is none that just goes a straight line up. None. That's a straight line. There's no dips. There's no peaks. There's nothing. And if you could find one, I'll give you a free service for a year. But there's definitely nothing out there that's actually there. They're all, when you dive into it, right, they're all going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. But the main, when you add in that sort of trajectory line, and excuse me, I don't know the actual term of that, right? Like the actual, median line, of course, the median line's up. But when you look at the actual activity that happened month to month, year to year, there's peaks and valleys all the time in any successful business. Even Apple has peaks and valleys. So if you're going through a valley in your business right now or your life, don't think that it's the end of the world. Remember, when you bounce back out of that valley, 90% of the time, it's going to be higher than the peak you just left. And for me, that's exactly what it's been for me. Every time I've reached a peak, I've went down into a valley, I've bounced back up, and I've been higher than the previous peak. So all you have to do is continue to push forward. If this is what you really want to do, put in the effort, right? Put in the day-to-day work, be consistent. The idea is that every single day you're just taking steps forward towards your goals. And what will happen is your trajectory will look exactly like that. If you add, that what is that, a regression line or whatever that ends up being, right? The median line. If you zoom out, your line's going to look like it's all the way up. But if you zoom in and you look at smaller periods of time, you'll realize that there's, the peaks and valleys in your own life. And so just realize that if you're in a peak right now, enjoy it, because there's going to be a valley. It happens to everybody, right? There's going to be ups and downs. But if you're in a valley, use that information. Take the opportunity that you have right now in a valley and push yourself towards that next peak. Okay. Push yourself to continue to put in the effort. And sometimes you might have to take a step back. And what does that look like? Does it look like, maybe taking, a part-time job? Maybe it's taking a moment to do some door dashing, to offset some income while you're growing, making sure that you're learning, right? Whatever you can do, realize that as long as you're continuing to take efforts towards your goals, towards where your vision of your future, you're heading down the right path. And don't let anybody, kind of tell you otherwise, right? Just remember that you are your own person, and if you ever want to talk through it, like I said at the beginning, if you feel like there's so many things going on in your head and nobody understands, reach out. Like, don't try to hold that shit in. Like, that's going to be the worst thing that you could do. Okay. And surround yourself by people that understand and that actually check in. Like, hey, how things going? What's new? What's been going on lately? Anything you need to get off your chest? And sometimes, as much as we want it to be the people, that are in our direct circle, sometimes that's not going to happen. I've been in that situation too. You just have to surround yourself with the people that understand you. Surround yourself with the people that are on the same journey as you. They're the ones that are truly going to push you forward. The people that aren't on the same journey as you, they're always going to try to, direct you towards the journey that they understand, the journey that they think you should be on. Great for them. That's not you. So continue to push forward. So that was kind of it's just been weighing on me. I've had a lot of conversations with people. I've been in that situation right in the past. And so it kind of led me to, kind of give it a little bit of background that, you're not going to, some people get it right the first time. Don't get me wrong. Some people, they launch their first business and it's the most successful thing since sliced bread. That's the exception to the rule. That's not the norm. And so I definitely learned that lesson in the franchise, right? When you get into a franchise, they hype you up. They have all these daily or weekly calls, depending on what was going on. And they always put those exceptions on the call, right? They always put those people that are the exception to the rule, right? They don't put the average person on there, because how's that going to motivate you? And don't get me wrong. I had a lot to learn. I did not go out and market like I should. I did not go out and network like I should. Being in my early 20s, I was young and naive. And I also kind of, was the reason for the detriment. All I'm saying is the lesson I learned from that is that you can't just assume that the exceptions are going to become your norm without work. And that was the biggest lesson I learned from that. Franchisors have a reason, right? They have a motivation to put the exceptions in front of you, because they're the ones that they keep you coming back. They're the ones that keep you, wanting to be part of the system, to keep paying your royalty fees. And that's awesome. Like, listen to, and I'm not saying don't listen to the exceptions, because you need to repeat what they did, but don't just assume that that's the norm for everybody. When, they put those exceptions in front of you, they're there for a reason, because they want to motivate you. But you also need to listen to their story, replicate what they're doing, and go out and do the work. That's the biggest lesson I learned when I was in my early 20s, looking back, and just thinking that, the franchisor said, this is what everybody's doing. This is the numbers you're going to get. This is all you have to do, is these minimal sort of efforts. Wow. Okay. And that's what I did. And I didn't learn in the moment, right? I'm just like, man, I'm not getting the results. And, they overpromise. I guess they don't overpromise. You got to put it. They overshow, I guess, the success that's possible for everybody, with the exception. And so what I'm going to say to you is if you're looking at scenarios like that, right? Like, so you're following a lot of successful people, you're listening to a lot of these videos, you're listening to us, right? Like, it's not overnight success. There's a lot of work that goes in the back end. And so ultimately for yourself, give yourself that runway, give yourself that time to put in all that work, put in all that effort to then, reach what, other people will look at you and say you were an overnight success, right? Oh my God, you just went from zero to nothing. How did that happen? No, I went from zero to, I went from 0 to 5 to 10 to 15, maybe I jumped up to 35 and then I went to, whatever it is, to 100, because you put in the effort and you're being consistent and you did the work that you needed to do. And that's ultimately, what you should be doing. So that's a couple of lessons I learned, just from going through my journey in entrepreneurship. I truly feel like now the focus is, always be willing to learn, always be willing to expand, read, whether it's, actually reading the book, or I use Alex Hormozy's sort of reading trick where we have the audiobook on and then you have the book in front of you. And so I turn the audiobook on 2x speed and then I read, with it. And so essentially it helps me read, because if I were to read by myself, sometimes I'm not the fastest reader, but doing it with the audiobook, that was like probably one of the bigger hacks that I got out of, Alex Hormozy when he talks in his audiobooks is, grab the book and then grab the audio version and just listen to it on 2x speed. And obviously you can go through the book that much quicker and still pick it up because you're still hearing all the words and then you're also repeating them in your mind. So read, educate yourself, be willing to, kind of explore, test, be quick to make decisions, but then also, don't be afraid to, make adjustments, right? Do your analysis of, new projects or new offers, do what you feel is right, but then don't be afraid to change it. Like, just because you make a decision doesn't mean you have to stick with that decision forever. We make the best decisions every single day based on the information that we have to us right now, right? Every single day, you're given new information about the economy. You're given new information about yourself. You're given new information about your clients. You're getting new information about the market, right? Everything that's going on around the world, about your family, whatever it ends up being. But you can only make the best decision today with the information that you're given. And so if tomorrow or a week from now, you find out new information that makes that decision, irrelevant, or maybe it changes that decision a little bit, don't be afraid to do it. I've talked with many people that, had made a decision 2 or 3 months ago. And then in the last, month, they realized that it wasn't right, that they weren't getting results, or that something changed, in their situation, but they felt that they had to stick with the decision they made 3 months ago. And they're just, they're paying for it, right? And so be quick to analyze, be quick to learn, be quick to educate yourself, but then also be quick to adjust, be quick to make changes, improvements in your life, in your business. That's going to help you along the way. So educate, be quick to change, network. I can't tell you how important it is to network as a small business owner. And one of the recent conversations I had with somebody was, if you think of who your ideal client profile is, think of who you want to essentially work with. Where are they, right? Where are they talking? Where are they posting? Where are they spending their time? But when I talk to a lot of people, I say, who do you want to be connected with, right? Who are you looking to meet and build a relationship with? What they fail to mention, right? They always tell me who their ideal profile is, right? Who's their ideal client? But they fail to think about the second level to that. And that second level is who's also doing business with that profile. So think of who your ideal profile is. So let's say you work with business owners. Great. You say, somebody asks you that question, who do you want to be connected with? And you go, oh, I'm looking for business owners, people that are struggling with X, Y, and Z, right? That's everybody. That you have so many business owners out there. Now, the problem is business owners don't necessarily trust people right away, because everybody wants to do business with a business owner, right? Especially all our B2B people out there. I'm B2B, so I know it, right? Everybody wants to do a business with a business owner. So their attention is being grabbed from everybody. So instead of looking to network with just business owners, think of who does business with business owners and start networking with those people. So think about like accountants, attorneys, payroll people, insurance brokers, the people that are building, that already have relationships with their clients who are business owners, and look and build relationships with that second level. Because here's what happens. Now, when that second level, that bookkeeper or that attorney or that business broker makes the introduction of you to their client, you're not now a cold introduction. You are a warm introduction, because that business owner trusts that person who referred you. That business owner is listening to that person who they're doing business with and they trust and have a relationship with, because they say, hey, I know a guy. Hey, John, let me introduce you to Dave. He does X, Y, and Z. Right? And that's where the relationships, and that's where your true success is going to happen from networking. Don't just think of, I need to network with my ideal client profile. I see this all the time. I lead networking groups, right, for Alignable. And when I ask the question, hey, please share who you'd like to be connected with, who you would like to be referred to, everybody says their ideal client. Okay, let me take that back. 90% of people say ideal client. There's about 10% of people that will say something around the lines of, well, I'm looking to get connected with, X, Y, and Z, as partners or, referrals, right? And that's where you should be looking to get your best foot forward, is that second level. Who's doing business with your ideal clients? And start networking with those people. Start building relationships with that level. And when they start making introductions, it's going to be that much easier for you to, as long as you have a quality product, right? You're trustworthy, people can trust you. Which leads me to one other thing on this topic, and I'll go to the next one. But you, as a business owner, especially if you're B2B or anything that you want to say is out there, especially nowadays, like, the chances of whatever we're putting out there, whatever we're doing is unique, is like slim to none, right? Because there's just so much information out there. There's so much value that people can get from YouTube, right? From, Facebook, if they're following the right people, or LinkedIn. Like, there's just so much out there. The strategies are out there, the tools are out there, the tips are out there, whatever. It's all out there. So if you're a business owner and you are trying to just tell people that you have the unique idea of this program that you put together, like, that's not what you're trying to sell. Like, people are going to buy you. You are essentially what they're going to decide to invest in and to partner with in their business, right? Because you don't have any unique strategies. Accounting, bookkeeping, that's not unique strategies. If you're a landscaper, you don't have any unique, essentially landscaping tips and tools, right? Like, all that stuff's out there that people can find it if they really want to. What they're doing is they're partnering with you as a trusted source to help them with that system, that policy, whatever it is that you do for your clients. They're trusting you. So you have to be trustworthy, essentially. Stop trying to say like you have like the most unique system, or, hey, this is the best system since sliced bread, because 90% or more are probably things that are already out there for free online. People aren't coming to you to do business with you because you have the, newest and most innovative thing and most innovative strategy. They're coming to you, and when you build that relationship, because they trust you to help them with that thing, because they don't understand it themselves, but they know that you do. So if you can change your messaging, instead of saying, hey, this is the most innovative system, this is the best system, this is nobody else has this system, to, when you're talking with somebody, hey, I get it. You could go find this information on YouTube. You can go see, right? If you want to use bookkeeping as an example, you can go to YouTube and find out how to reconcile a bank statement. You can go to YouTube and find out, where your cost of goods sold should be reported and how to make all the adjustments in QuickBooks. But do you want to do that? as a business owner? Do you have the time to do that right now? No. So, hey, let me help you with that. Right. Or, whether you're a business coach and you're talking to them about different strategies. Do you have the time to go out and research the best marketing strategies right now? Do you have the time to go out and look at the most recent YouTubes about how to make AI agents? No. But if you had somebody, right, that says, hey, I know about AI agents. I've become an expert in them because I've researched them a lot. I'm going to help you implement an AI agent in your business. It may not be the most innovative. It's probably not going to be something different than anybody else, but I can promise you that I'm going to help you do it. It's going to be impactful for your business. And that's what the last few, I don't know, like couple weeks, I've been just, that part's been weighing on my mind. Is like, nothing is unique 95 to 96% of the time. There are the small, unique people that come out with a brand new idea, brand new system, right? And more power to them. At that moment, they can go out and they can advertise that. But for the 95 of us and 96% of us that don't necessarily have anything unique in terms of the strategies and the ideas, right? Where we're helping, you can help if that's you, where you can help your clients, especially if you're B2B or B2C, is in yourself, right? I'm going to support you. I'm your partner. We're going to add more time back into your day. We're going to make sure that this gets done, which you don't have the time to do right now because you're a business owner, especially if you're B2B. So your focus shouldn't be on, oh, we're the best, or we're the most unique, or we have the best benefits. No, you should be worried about building a relationship so that person trusts you. And the most forward thing that you could do is just be honest and say, you know what? I know that you could go to YouTube right now. In fact, I have a link if you want. If you don't, I could send that link to you right now. That's going to tell you everything that I just did. And you can go and you can probably research another 15 to 20 of YouTube videos that are going to give you everything that we talked about and that I'm going to support you with. But do you have the time to then go and implement it? Do you have the time to actually then take the information you receive from that free resource and put it into work, or to hold yourself accountable to make sure that you do it? And that's where you can add the benefit to somebody. That's where you can then say, you know what, I'm going to help you do this. I'm going to support you in this. I'm going to make sure that you do it. That's your ultimate goal. And so, it's just something that's been on my mind. I've seen a lot of people say, we're the most unique. We have the best new program. We have this most innovative thing. No, you don't. No, you don't. So just be open, just be honest, just partner with people. That's kind of my feedback on that. So I'm going to pause right now. So if you are a business owner and you're watching this, I'm trying to unlock my iPad here real quick to check my notes. And you want to be on a future episode. So if you want to come on, you want to talk about your business, you want to potentially, maybe you're going through some obstacles, you want to talk through some of those in a future episode, drop down below, hey, you're interested, I'll reach out to you, and we'll set up a time where we record live. As you can see, this live every Friday at 8:15 a.m. We'll bring you on a show. You can talk a little bit about what you do, how you support your clients, how you support your customers. And then we can even walk through maybe one or two things, obstacles that you're facing in your business, and maybe provide some insights and point you in the right direction. So if that's you and you're interested, comment, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, drop a comment down below and just put that you are interested in possibly joining us on a future episode, and we will reach out and get that set up. So back to the conversation. So another conversation I had earlier this week. I was meeting with a local, kind of connection of mine, and I asked him to, kind of give me a little bit about how he introduces himself, right? How he talks about his business to his prospects. And what I came to realize was, because the struggle that was mentioned was that people aren't necessarily understanding the offering that he has, or they don't understand how they support him. And so I was listening to how he was explaining himself, and it come to realize that, he's explaining all these wonderful and amazing things that he did for bigger companies, but his target now is like smaller businesses. And so I said, hey, take a moment, and I want you to listen to what you just said, the story you just had mentioned to me, and put yourself in your prospect's shoes. When they hear all of that big story that you just worked with a multinational, organization, and they hear that story about how you developed that outcome for them. And I don't want to give away too much because I don't want, the person, right, to think that I'm talking bad. But what do you think that they hear? And he realized by like putting himself then in his prospect's shoes that, oh, well, they probably feel like I'm overqualified or that I'm going to be way too expensive. Exactly. So by taking that moment to take yourself out and try to overqualify his story and his past and his qualifications, he was able to realize that people probably were feeling that he was going to be too expensive, or that he was going to be trying to do all these extra things in their business that they didn't need. So the outcome of that was that we were able to talk through his scenario and look at simplified options and begin to simplify how he words and gives stories to prospects. Right? Once we get in the door and then you start, working with somebody and you have like big grandeur, experience and, history in your career, that's when you can start, letting them know a little bit more in depth. And so the outcome of that conversation was great. Like he was able to not only go from not having clear ideas of the ways that he could support his clients or have packages put together, we were able to clearly set up in just one coffee conversation for him a baseline for how to set up basic packages, how to message himself in a way that small business owners can resonate. And then we also settled and we were able to kind of, talk through some introductory sort of statements when meeting with new people to explain what he does. And in that one conversation, the gentleman walked away with so much information. It was great. So from that conversation, what I want you to do and what I want a lesson you can learn from this as for yourself. And I think I talked about it like last week or maybe even the week before. One, you need to practice. You need to practice not only your introductions, not only your purpose statement, but you need to practice your exploratory conversations, your consultations. Go through and actually practice how you're going to go through a conversation with a prospect. Because if you don't, one, you're going to stumble through it, right? Because you're going to be like, what am I supposed to do here? How are you doing? And then you let them start controlling the conversation. Practice how you want to run a consultation, whether it's a 15-minute consultation, a 30-minute consultation, a demo, whatever it is. If you're not practicing that until you have the flow in memory that you could do it with your eyes closed, you haven't practiced enough. And I'm going to raise my hand here because it's something that I still need to be doing. I still have started doing this on repetition every single day for at least 15, 20 minutes a day, running through a script, running through an exploratory call, how I want to, kind of run that, practicing the purpose statement to start off, your meetings, developed that, started it, and practiced it. And so from him, he never actually took his stuff out to actually like practice, right? It just was the stuff that flew out of his tongue because he wanted to give everybody the big in-depth, right, history and experience that he has with all these bigger organizations when he worked for organizations instead of being on his own. And once he was able to take that step back and he was able to put himself right into the prospect's shoes and listen back to the stories and then think, hey, what would they hear when they hear this part of my experience? He was never going to be able to change it. He was always just going to come, say the same stories, and not realize that people are already feeling that he's going to be out of his price range or that he's not going to be able to support what they do. And so for you, the biggest thing that you can do is practice your script, practice your intro, practice, that elevator 2 to 3 sentence introduction, and then listen back to it. Put yourself in your prospect's shoes. Does my prospect, based on what I'm saying, will they get the point that I'm trying to make? So record your practice sessions, listen back to your practice sessions, and then put yourself in your prospect's shoes. Will they understand the point, what you're trying to make? Will they understand that you relate to them? We talked about it a little bit ago. You necessarily don't have something truly unique in terms of like a strategy. You may be better at implementing. Great. Talk about that. But you also need to build that trust, build that relationship, build that relatability with them. And you're going to do that by simplifying your intro to talk directly to pain points and struggles and stressors that you see with your clients that they may be having themselves, and keep it at that. All your experience, all that stuff can come up later. Once they've decided to either, maybe it's a deeper dive, or maybe it's hey, they're already working with you and they wanted to get a little bit more knowledge about who you are. Then you can give your in-depth experience, your in-depth knowledge. Don't do it in an exploratory call, because you're going to turn so many people away, and they're going to make their judgments about what your cost is, or if your service is going to be too much. You're going to try pushing things on them that they didn't ask for. So that was one lesson from a conversation I had this week. So practice, but then put yourself in your prospect's shoes. Another thing that I, had a conversation about, and I multiple people this week that I had conversations with, is they're still focusing on hourly project services instead of thinking of the value offer, the value programs that they could be delivering to their clients. And so the idea here, right, is you want to think of, how can I develop, maybe it's a lower cost, continued support that continues to bring value, right? Bring that support piece to your client, but also helps you understand that you have now recurring revenue coming into your business. If you're a project-based business owner, the stressor that comes with not having constant, every month revenue, right? The monthly recurring revenue. And so if you don't have programs to provide monthly recurring revenue in your business, that's your first misstep, right? So start thinking, how can I provide continued support, after a project? So maybe you give a project and then it includes 12 months, of monthly recurring support after, or quarterly support. A lot of people that I've talked to, they don't even think about that. They haven't even thought about, how do I develop programs instead of hourly rates? Or they're on call and then they just, I'll charge by the hour when they call me. Well, that's not great. Like you need to also have some benefit that you can give them. Give them a monthly support piece, or unlimited calls, or access to your cell phone, or they can call you anytime for unlimited 15-minute calls. Something that you can provide every month that they feel like they're getting value, that they feel that peace of mind, right? That they have somebody on their team to be supportive. That's the idea, is that you're giving somebody peace of mind. You're giving them that support. My longest client has told me time and time again, I sleep better knowing that I can call you at any time and ask questions. And he essentially invests in that peace of mind for himself with our services. And it's not set recurring time. He calls me anytime he wants. He gets a letter in the mail. He shoots me a picture. Hey man, I just got this. What does this mean? And we solve it for him, right? We handle everything every month that needs to be done. But when he needs me, he calls me, and that peace of mind that somebody is there to answer his questions at any time, that to him is worth that investment that he makes every year. And so think of your own services, your own support. How can you provide that same level of peace of mind to your target client on a recurring basis, not just on a project basis or an hourly basis. Because if you still think of yourself as an hourly, and you want to charge people as an hourly, you're underselling yourself. You're really underselling yourself. And then finally, what I wanted to do is, we talk about profit first a lot on this podcast. I'm a profit first certified, firm. And so what I wanted to do is kind of go over and review a few scenarios on our tool that we have on our website. So if you're interested in kind of running your own numbers, you can go to triumphbusinesssolutions.pro. And then on the main website, right in the middle, it says, get your free business snapshot, right? Your business stability snapshot. Or you can, if you're interested, you can go to triumphbusinesssolutions.pro/triumph-assessment, whichever is easier for you. So what I wanted to do is go through a couple scenarios here on the assessment and kind of show you, some typical scenarios that we see as we're working with clients. So this is our tool. And at the top, you can just, kind of enter your name. And the first thing that you're going to right here is for the period. So whether it's a full year numbers that you're entering, or maybe it's a partial year because you're entering, let's say, this current year and you just reconciled through September. So if you do and you select partial year, what you'll do is you'll come over here and how many months does these numbers cover? And so if it's 9, right? So it's September, we're going to enter 9. And then under the number entry. So here's how, and we've talked about this in the past about profit first. Your top line revenue number is your gross revenue, right? But that's not where we're looking at. You could be $1 million company, but if you have $600,000 of materials that go along with that, you're really only $400,000 that can be used for other things to grow your business, to pay yourself, et cetera. So for example, in 9 months, let's say a company, a typically maybe small organization has $125,000 of top line revenue. Now, next, what we want you to think of, we've talked about calculation of real revenue on this podcast, is materials are direct materials that you have to pay for to make your revenue. So whether this is a direct subscription, so every time you sign a new client, it costs you $100 extra a month, right? Or maybe it's a service or a product that you're providing, and so that product has 30% gross material charges. Whatever those material charges are, you're going to enter in here. So in this case, I'm going to do a service-based business, so they don't have any materials. Subcontractors, and this is subcontractors/employees. And these are people that, again, in order for you to get paid, they have to provide work. If it's something that is like a back office assistant, that happens whether or not you make money or not, that's part of operating expenses. Subcontractor dollars are things that have direct impact on your revenue. And so this is a service-based business, and maybe they have contractor costs that when a client does a service, it increases that cost, right? So they have extra hours with, let's say, a subcontractor. So in our case here, they spend $25,000 so far in the year to pay their subcontractors. So as you'll see here, it automatically calculates your real revenue. So in this organization, their real revenue through 9 months is $100,000. Now we want to talk about the core 4 profit first accounts. So first is your profit savings. So these are any reserves that you have built up in your business for profit, plus any celebratory distributions that you've taken for yourself out of the business this year or in the period that you're entering. And when I mean celebratory, I mean you didn't take money out of the business and then paid a utility bill or paid a mortgage bill. This is something that's truly not part of your everyday lifestyle. So for an example, if you took $1,000 as a profit distribution in a quarter and you went and you took a weekend trip away with your spouse, that would be considered a profit distribution. But if you took $500 out and it was used to pay your car note, no, that's part of owner's pay, owner's comp. So when you enter your profit, it's any reserve savings that are in the business, right? Plus any actual celebratory distributions that you've taken from the business for yourself. So in this case, let's say this owner has $5,000 of profit activity so far through the first 9 months. Now, owner's comp. Owner's comp is one, those distributions that we've taken that support our lifestyle, okay? Plus any wages that we've paid ourselves, plus any other paid expenses in the business that benefit the lifestyle of the owner. So for example, if the business pays your cell phone bill, add in your cell phone in owner's comp. If the business pays your car note, right, add in the car note payment in owner's comp. Anything that benefits you as a business owner goes into owner's comp. So for example, let's say this owner has paid themselves, $25,000 so far through the first 9 months. Next is taxes. So as you'll notice too, these first 3 buckets are things that are benefiting you as the business owner, right? Profit, you're saving for the future of the business, plus you're also taking some celebratory funds to celebrate the work that you're putting in your business, your benefit. Owner's comp, that's pretty self-explanatory. Taxes, this is money that the business pays for your taxes on your behalf. So if for whatever reason you have a C corp or some sort of wherever you're watching this and your business has to pay taxes itself, it's not just that, but then the business should be paying for your own personal taxes that you have to pay. Now, in the United States, most often small business owners are set up as an LLC, a partnership, or an S corp, where most of that stuff flows through to their personal return. So this tax reserve, this tax bucket, is used to pay your estimated payments and used to pay any balance that's due at the end of the year. So in this case, let's say that the business has paid another $5,000 of taxes on behalf of the owner. Do not include here if you paid taxes as an estimated payment, but it came out of your personal funds. Taxes is only either the savings balance you have in your account or the year-to-date estimate payments that you've paid from the business, not from your personal, okay? And then operating expenses, this is going to be pretty much everything else that comes out of your P&L, right? So if you're looking at your P&L to grab these numbers, you'll take, right, your total expenses minus what you included up in owner's comp, and we got to take that 0 off here. And this is going to be everything else. So let's say you had total expenses on your P&L of, let's say, $100,000, and you paid yourself $25,000 to your benefit. So this is going to say that you have $75,000, right, that you spent out. Now, what you may notice is that you spent $75,000 expenses. You paid yourself $25,000. You had $5,000 of kind of profit savings and profit distributions, and you paid $5,000 from the business, but you only had $100,000 of real revenue. So what does that show you? Well, here. So put in your numbers, and then you're going to hit get instant assessment. And so in this case, right, her owner impact, she's critical, or he's critical. And spending, he's way critical because he's 150% over target. And owner's impact, the three owners account, they're 50% below where they should be. And so what you'll see down here is this is our calculation that we run pretty quickly for you. So we annualize the totals to represent a 12 months. So we take the number, above, and then we annualize that. So we're projecting that for a year, this particular business is going to have $166,000, dollars of top line revenue. We are estimating that their materials, in our case, subcontractors, is $33,333, and which leaves our real revenue to be $133,033. Currently, our profit account, right, is 5%, which we're awesome, right on target, right? That's where it should be. It should be 5% based on this real net revenue number. Our owner's comp number is only at 25%, when really she should be closer, or he should be closer to 50%. So they're missing about $33,000 of owner's pay from themselves. Now, on the tax side, they're only at 5%, on track to pay 5%, when really we should be saving 15%, which is more like 20 grand. So again, we're off by $13,333. Now, our expenses, our other spending is over, and we're overspent by 10%. And the reason for that can happen because maybe you're paying principal payments on loans, right? That obviously are not going to hit your P&L. So maybe you're paying, money out the door that's going for old card notes, or you're paying money out the door that's going towards old loans that's, from prior years. That's going to mean your cash is going to be overspent from what your real revenue is. And we need to get that down to 30%. So in this case, this particular scenario, even 100,000, they're over by 45%. So how do we impact that? Well, one, right, we need to start, capping our owners' transfers, and we need to freeze and go through our operating expenses and start doing an expense review. What is mandatory? What is that we're spending that is directly related to us bringing in a client or servicing a client? Okay, that's the first thing that we need to do. And right here is the next 90 days. How can you make and start making some quick changes and slight changes to get you where you need to be? So in this case, our profit, we don't have to adjust. We're already there. In our owner's comp, we're going to take that up 2%. In our tax, we're going to take that up 2%. And then we're going to drop our operating expenses to 14. So we're only going to take 61%. And what you'll notice is that we're not expecting your business to go from where you are currently, 75 down to 30 overnight. We're making small incremental changes that allows you to get where you need to be. But this 14% drop is because we just want your cash flow to be net neutral. You shouldn't be overspending, right? Because what happens when you overspend and you have more cash going out the door than you have coming in? Well, either one, you're reducing your reserves that you've had in your business previously, or two, in order for you to survive, you have to take some sort of loan, whether it's your owner reinvesting into the business, or it's taking a loan from a family member on the personal side to fund the business. Whatever it is, it's something that you're gonna have to pay back in the future when you have negative cash flow, and we don't want that. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to go through the same scenario, but a scenario where there's no profit. And so what would you do? Let's say let's just use a 12-month period. Okay. And let's say it's a $450,000 business, $50,000 of materials, and, they're $50,000 of subcontractors. So we have $350,000 of real revenue. Our owner's comp, let's just call the owner's comp $75,000. Taxes, maybe they paid $15,000, or we'll just make it even for $25,000. But when they've gone through all their expenses, they've looked at their P&L. They also then analyzed the additional cash that's going out to pay for additional liabilities. They realized that they spent $300,000 of operating cash that's gone out the window, which would mean that they're losing money, right? So in this case, we're going to put, we're going to actually have a negative profit. We're going to put 0 for profit, right? Because they don't have any profit. They're negative. And so again, if we look here, their owner stability is a little bit better because they're a little bit closer, but then they're 114% over. And so you could quickly see, right, profit, they should be at 10% based on this size of $350,000 of real revenue. The owner's comp should be at 35. They're at 21. Tax, again, should be 15. And they're at 86% for operating because they're overspending. They're losing money. And so essentially we need to get that down to 40%. And so what you'll notice, when you run through this is then again, you get the first quick adjustments, right? You can see exactly where your numbers are compared to the targets. And again, you don't have to get there right away. Make small incremental adjustments every quarter. Typically every, on a 6 to 12 quarter plan, you can get from where you currently are to where you should be in your target. So if you're interested, again, go to triumphbusinesssolutions.pro. On the homepage, if you click right here where it says claim your free business stability snapshot, it will open up the Triumph business stability snapshot here. You can enter your information, grab your cash basis P&L, either for a full year, rolling 12 months, or partial year. If you want to run partial year for 2025, you could just, enter here partial year and then tell me the number of months and then enter your numbers. And you'll be able to see exactly where you've been, where you should be for your business. And what I'll tell you too is that these percentages over here, the targets, are based on your real revenue, but they're based on over 200, 300,000 businesses that have implemented this profit first system across the world. We've been able to compile these successful businesses' typical percentage allocation numbers and present it as our targets for you. Now, these are baselines. Your business right? It can be a little bit different. The beauty is that no matter what, this system can be customized for you, right? You can take it and you can set up an extra account for, maybe it's an extra savings account, or maybe you want to have a vault account that's, for your specific rainy day to build up that 3 to 6 months of business tax reserves in your business. Whatever it is, it can be customized and can be created for you in your business. But the number one outcome of doing this, whether you're doing it alone or you work with a profit first professional like myself, the biggest benefit for you as an owner is that now you're managing your cash when it comes in. You're being proactive, which I say all the time, you need to be proactive. You're now being proactive with your cash flow. You are being innovative. You're able to, think differently, right? If you don't have the money in the operating account, but you need to get something done, how do you get it done yourself? How do you create something that's more cost effective? The biggest example of this, and I've said this, before, we've talked about the Savannah Bananas, but they are like the case study of the success of Profit First. If you listen to Jesse Cole, the owner of the Savannah Bananas, they were literally living right in their clubhouse on a mattress, and they're mentioned in the Profit First book. Okay, and they were literally, I think it was like 1.5 or 1.8 million dollars in debt. They were about to lose everything. They're about to lose the team. They implemented Profit First, and they're able to really understand where my money goes, where should it be spent, right? The profit distributions were working to pay down debt using the debt snowball effect, right? They were able to, limit their operating expense money, and they were able to think more innovatively. The one example, they were facing, they needed to, they were growing, they needed to figure out how are they going to do ticketing, and they were evaluating $100,000 ticketing software, where most people would have been like, I need this. I need to figure out how I'm going to spend $100,000 to get it. But because they had the Profit First system implemented in their business, they said, no, it doesn't fit the checklist that we created for ourselves. And so they went out and they bought banana-shaped tickets for $6,000. So they saved themselves, right, $94,000 by being able to understand and have a system for their money and not let their business manage their money, right? Because what you think you may need in your business. So whether you're doing it yourself or you're working with a Profit First professional, you become proactive in your money management. So take one step, right? Go out and, open your profit account today at your bank. And when you open up a new account, a couple things to keep in mind: ask for, no minimum balance, and ask for no fees. Okay. Two biggest things to worry about when you're setting up new accounts for Profit First: no balance, no fees. If you have a bank that wants to charge you a minimum balance, or they want to charge you a minimum fee, think about finding another bank. And if you're interested, I have no relation to this, but Relay, it's an online bank. They are Profit First certified. They allow you to set up to 20 different accounts, manage your allocations and everything through there if you'd like as well. Great bank, highly suggest it. But go and set one account, just your profit account. And every time you have money in your bank, whether, and you get deposits in your main account, at the end of a week, whether it's on Fridays or maybe, on the 10th or the 25th of the month, whatever you decide is the best for your business, take 2% and transfer it to your profit account and don't touch it. That's how you can get started with Profit First. Put profit first in your business, not last, right? This adage right here, the accounting adage is sales minus expenses equals your profit. So profit happens last. Profit isn't the priority then in your business if that's how you're treating your profit. But when you make it sales minus your profit is your expenses, now you take control. Now you ensure that your business is profitable from day one. Okay. Profit can be used in many different ways. A savings, it could be used to pay down debt. It could be used to, celebrate. But ultimately, you have to get started by putting it aside. So open up your profit account. Go to your bank, set up your profit account. And for me, I'd suggest doing it weekly. Every Friday, take whatever cash came in for the week and take 1 or 2% and put it in your profit account and watch that grow over the quarter. Now, if you're one who's tempted to, borrow from your profit account, then what you need to do is at the end of every month, have a bank at another, an account at another bank, and move the money into that account. And that bank requires you to come in to take the money out so that you're not tempted to borrow from your profit account, especially if you're doing it alone. And the reason I say that is my experience, right? When I first went to implement Profit First a couple of years ago, I didn't have an accountability, profit first professional. And so I just left the profit in my main account. So I logged in and I would see the balance. And I actually, and for me, I came out, I had an expense to come up. I'm like, oh, well, I can't pay it right now, but I got the money in the profit account. Let me pay it. And I'll just pay back my profit account. And then it never happened. And then what happens is then, since, you never paid it back and you saw your profit go down, well, this system doesn't work. And I stopped doing it because, again, for me, it took about that typical 6 to 9 months and I fell off because I didn't do it the right way. Or I didn't have somebody there to hold me accountable and to talk with me every month to literally go over my allocations and my balances and my plans for my business. And so I fell off by the wayside. So that's your first step. If you're interested in this, set up your profit account, right? Allocate 1% to 2% every single week of the money that came into your business and let it grow over a quarter. And the idea now is you're building that habit. And then once you start doing profit, now you can start doing your owner's comp, your tax. So if you don't have tax money set aside in your business, like we're coming up at the end of the year. So if you don't have a tax reserve set up in your business to pay your taxes, what are you going to do when it comes tax time? Is it going to come out of your personal money? Are you going to have to fund it from a loan? Are you going to put it on a credit card? And you don't want to do that. Your business should work for you. So by managing and setting these things aside ahead of time, you don't have to worry about taxes anymore. I met somebody at a networking event earlier this week that implemented Profit First in her business. She's very successful. And she said how much of a game changer it was by actually implementing this in her business. Because when tax comes up, we talked about the tax time. She said, I don't worry about it. I know it's there. I don't have to wonder if my tax dollars are saved in that account. And the beauty of the tax reserve is if your taxes come in a lot less than what you've reserved, is now it's an extra profit distribution, or maybe it's an extra pay down on some debt, or maybe it goes to fund your reserve account, your vault account. But the beauty here is that now you're being proactive. You're managing your money in your business. And if you're not doing that yet and you don't know how to do it, reach out. I will walk you through it. Go to the website, triumphbusinesssolutions.pro. And just like we just went through, right? Go here and enter your numbers. Take your cash basis P&L, whether it's for the rolling prior 12 months or it's the year-to-date numbers, and fill in your numbers and see where you are compared to where you should be. And then if you want to plan on how to do that, reach out and I can give you and we can walk through options on how to get to that target for you and your business. But with that in mind, I appreciate everybody who's watching. If you made it this far, please help us reach our goal of impacting 1,000 businesses by the end of 2028. And one of the ways that we can do that is through this podcast. So if you heard something in the podcast and something that means something to you and that you're going to take away and implement in your business, please give this video, our channel, first a subscribe, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. Subscribe, get notified. We go live every single week. And then share this to your network. Help me get the podcast out. We're also on Apple. We're also on some of the other networks. If you're listening to the audio version, we appreciate you there as well. But help us get the word out, especially if you found something in today's episode that was meaningful and impactful for you. But until then, we love you. If you're interested and you're a business owner on becoming a guest on the podcast, comment down below wherever you're watching this, and I'll reach out to you and we'll get you scheduled. We can talk about some valuable information that you help your business clients with and your customers. And then we'll even potentially walk through maybe 1 or 2 situations that you're going through right now in your business. And we'll walk through those live and we'll be able to help you and point you in the right direction, hopefully. But if that's you and you're interested, drop down below. We'll get you scheduled. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful and amazing weekend. I hope you guys, get to make a lot of memories over the weekend. I can't believe it's, only a couple months away from Christmas and the end of the year. It's crazy how fast that flies by. But keep down, practice, makes perfect. Practice your pitches, practice your elevator pitches, practice your exploratory calls, your consultations, okay? And put yourself in the mind of your prospect and then network. I love you all. I'll see you guys in the next one.